The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Step outside of your comfort zone. See the world with a whole new perspective. Join us and experience the unexplained on the Paranormal View.
And welcome everybody right here to the Paranormal View on the Para-X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Those here in the chat room and those listening from around the world, we appreciate each and every one of you. Tonight, we're going to have a great show lined up, and we have with us tonight Barbara Duncan.
Good evening, everyone.
And we got Jeffrey Gould.
Hello, hello.
And our guest tonight, which Jeff will be introducing here in just a minute, is got a lot of info for tonight, and there's some things that we're going to be talking about tonight that we haven't discussed much on, and it ought to be a good topic to learn about. So since we've got a lot going on, Jeff, you want to introduce our guest?
Yep. Our returning guest tonight is longtime friend of the show, Cat Snider Gasch. She teams up with Henry on Paranormal View Gettysburg weekends, when there actually are Gettysburg weekends. As a sensitive, since she was 5 years old, Cat has been experiencing the paranormal, and since then she's had experiences here in America, as well as, not surprisingly, in haunted Ireland, Scotland, and England. Her first book, My Life Amidst The Paranormal, is just a small glimpse into her experiences. So welcome back, Cat Gasch. Yay!
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Like I was saying, we've got quite a bit of stuff, topics that I was going over and everything. And I don't believe that I even mentioned it to Jeff or Barbara. But the topic we was going to talk some about tonight is about doppelgangers.
Yes.
And I've never seen one. I've been with people who says they've seen it. I know people who says they've seen one. And I haven't. Don't necessarily know if I'd like to.
Okay. Well, hopefully I might be able to shed a little bit of light on it.
Well, a doppelganger. Now, is that a ghost that takes the appearance of a live person?
Well, according to most of the information that I've looked up, there's an umlaut over this one A, so I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but doppelganger is a German word that means double goer and refers to a wraith or apparition that casts no shadow and is a replica or double of a living person. And they were generally considered omens of bad luck or even signs of impending death or doom. And a doppelganger seen by a person's relative or a friend was said to signify that illness or danger would befall that person. And this is what's scary, while seeing one's own doppelganger was said to be an omen of death. And my own personal experiences with 3 of them, I'll tell you, I have to kind of believe that there's an awful lot of truth to what I just read.
So you had
They're
one. They're
scary.
You had one that looked like you.
Not necessarily one of me, but all 3 times that it happened, all 3 were not only very scary, but it seemed that all 3 of them really wanted to isolate and possibly even harm the people that saw it. And that is really scary.
So,
Although it can be weird. I mean, I've seen mine.
Ew.
Sort of. I'm going to say sort of, because years and years ago when I was much younger, in my early teens, my family and a family of friends went to see the Army-Navy game, football game at West Point. And all of a sudden, our friend said, "Oh my God, look at this." And he had his binoculars. And apparently the water boy, and I don't know on which team, was about me, 5 or 7 years older. It looked like me. The hair was like me if I didn't comb it down, because I actually have curlier hair than it looks. And he even walked the same way, had the same gait and the same semi-slouch I have.
Oh, that's scary.
And we were
weird.
just blown away. But we never did anything about it. We didn't go, check them out and say, "Hey, are you? Take a look."
Yeah. Well, you got to figure that with all the humans that are here on the earth, and despite our individual DNA coming from our families, there's got to be some sort of a finite blueprint, if you will, on the human appearance. And that's why a lot of people say that they see their doubles somewhere, because their facial features and that maybe even their height and maybe even their voices are very similar to somebody that you know. Because I've seen a few people that look like myself. I've seen people that look like some of my relatives. But the doppelgangers within the paranormal part of it, that's a whole different story. And that is what's unnerving. I mean, seeing somebody that looks like you is like, hey, that person's really good looking. This is great. I didn't realize I was that good looking. But the doppelgangers, no, that's different. That's way different.
And you see them and it's kind of like creepy, right? I mean, there's a different vibe about them than like a normal person that you would say that would look like you.
Yeah, well, I think probably what's even more creepy is that you have no idea at the moment, at that particular time, that you're not seeing the person that you think you are. And that's what's the most unnerving, when you realize that who you just saw was not the person you thought. That's what's really gets you. That's what's really creepy.
Yeah, there was one in the group that I was investigating with at Waverly. I didn't get to see the person, but Tim Shaw and 4 or 5 others did. I was, I guess, doing something else at the time. So I'm not necessarily.
Wasn't the doppelganger supposed to be Tim?
No, it was a
No,
girl.
no, I was seriously. I thought that somebody said that they thought they saw Tim upstairs and Tim was actually downstairs.
Well, that was probably at one of the times, but the one that Tim and him saw was of the girl that was there. She was in amongst 3 or 4 others talking with them, and Tim seen her over somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's probably some of the most strangest thing.
So what do you think?
And sorry.
What do you think a doppelganger tries to do by doing stuff like this?
Well, my own personal experience, all 4 times that it happened, that whatever, and I really don't know what it is, if it's an actual spirit that's mimicking somebody that you're familiar with or somebody you're comfortable with, or if it's something else. I don't know. But all 4 times that this happened to me, it was because they wanted me out of the area or they wanted to isolate me. And when I look back on it now, all 4 times that this happened, when you're in a location investigating, and all of us know this, you really should not be by yourself for a couple of reasons. One, for security, safety reasons. But the second is you want somebody there to validate what you might be experiencing and as a backup. And all 4 times, this doppelganger wanted to not only isolate me, but a couple of others in another incident where it separated me from the rest of the group, caused me to have to leave and go to another location. And it just did not register with me for the longest time that that is exactly what was happening, is that they were trying to isolate me and or cause me harm. So when I read that, I was like, wow, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Wow. So,
Well, in a way, that's true because it can mimic other people. Do you know if any of the investigations have actually seen them in person, untaped them, so that it's on film, where you actually see the person in 2 locations at once?
Well, all 4 of the times that it happened to me personally, I don't know of anyone that caught, 2 of them were 2 individual. They were separate from any kind of an actual investigation. The other 2 times, no, nothing was going on at the time because of the locations. There wasn't any video set up or anything like that. So no, they made sure, whatever it is, that they weren't caught on camera. So no, unfortunately, I have absolutely no video or audio evidence whatsoever.
So they're actually kind of cognizant of modern technology in that sense.
Apparently so.
or
I have no doubt of it.
That's creepy in itself.
maybe a camera won't pick them up at all.
That's true too. That is absolutely true. I mean, the one location in particular, there was no way that we could have caught this doppelganger because of where it was seen and who it was seen by, because we couldn't cover the entire area. And that's what made it even more scary.
Yeah, it would be, and it would seem to me that because it happens so infrequently and just sort of, I would assume out the blue, it's not like you can't see a doppelganger while you're in a laundromat, for example, and not necessarily just it goes to paranormal investigations. Happen anywhere.
That's even
right?
more freaky.
But you'll agree it can happen anywhere,
anything.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely scary. Wow.
I mean, we sort of think of it, in terms of haunted and paranormal locations, but I mean, there's sightings of doppelgangers outside of people's homes, all over the place that aren't necessarily paranormal or haunted, per se.
Well, like Jeff seeing himself down on the field, you just look down there and say, hey, that person looks, wow, very much like me. But when you're doing it within the scope of doing a paranormal investigation or being in a location that is paranormal, then that is probably the most unnerving. That's the scariest part of it. And I think it's because they, whatever it is, or whoever it is that is doing it, knows perfectly well that you're heightened to what's going on. And that's some of the things that happened to me was because with the exception of one, I was in 3 locations that we were doing investigations at the time. And so I was not even thinking that something like this was going to happen. But then when I look back on it on retrospect, yes, indeed, it happened simply because whatever or whoever it was knew that they could get away with it. And the last one, or the one that wasn't during an investigation, that was the one that probably unnerved me more than anything else. It had nothing to do with a paranormal investigation. It was a personal issue, and that one is still in my brain. That one is still something that haunts me.
Now let me ask you then, would you consider doppelgangers a ghost who simply figured out how to change their appearance? Or do you think that it is a separate type of sub-entity that can mimic like a chameleon would?
I think it's a mimic sort of thing, but in truth, I think, and there's an awful lot to be said for this, that because after we pass away, we're just energy, and the fact that spirits can show themselves to people in different stages of their lives. You know, just because you die at age 50 doesn't mean that they're going to come back and show themselves to people at age 50. They'll come back and show themselves to people at age 25 when they were the happiest. You know, they may have just gotten married or had a child and that was their happiest. And that's the way they feel in the afterlife. And that's what they're seen as in a haunting. And so I think sometimes the spirits will show themselves in a manner that people would recognize, that they feel comfortable with. And I don't really know if it's actually their manifestation that we see, or it's something that they're projecting to our minds. And that's why more than one person, in the case of 3 of my experiences, more than one person saw the same doppelganger, but in different locations in this particular area. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a projection of thought or if they're actually taking on this form. I don't know.
You bring up a really good point, because somebody once mentioned about Marilyn Monroe, and that she was walking down the street with Marilyn and nobody recognized her. She had on, but glasses, but she was Marilyn Monroe. And the person remarked that they couldn't figure out why nobody was recognizing her. And she said, I just have to turn it on. And she just changed instantly, and all of a sudden everybody recognized her.
Yeah.
So it's you're right. I think it's more of a projection of a spirit as opposed to just a physical manifestation.
Yeah. I'm more likely to think that than anything else. I know a lot of people that firmly believe that when you're at a location and you hear a disembodied voice and nobody else hears it for some reason, that it's not necessarily that the spirit is talking to you directly, but it's just that you happen to be attuned to their frequency. Not that everybody else is, but you just happen to be. It's whoever happens to be attuned or tuned in to whatever is going on. So if the doppelganger wants to show itself or himself, herself, to a particular person, it might just be psychically rather than physically.
Very true. Almost sort of like some EVP recorders will pick up an EVP and another recorder in the same room won't pick it up at all. It's directional,
Right.
It seems.
Exactly.
Henry, you've had that happen, right?
Yeah, I think so.
A recorder in one room will pick it up and the others won't.
Yep, that's happened many times.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've had that happen. We had 2 digital recorders, and neither was getting any EVPs, but the video camera that was videotaping us doing it was picking up voices.
Yeah. I mean, Henry and I both experienced hearing voices at the Pry House that time, but unfortunately, neither one of our voice recorders picked it up, yet Pat's video camera that was set up downstairs picked up the voices. So, I mean, even though Henry and I heard them with our ears, our audio recorders didn't pick it up, but Pat's video camera did. So, where's, you have to wonder, well, why does that happen? So, something has got to be within the spirit realm that it either picks and chooses who they want to see and hear them or not. Maybe Henry and I just happen to be at the right place at the right time and be attuned to it.
Yeah, because I know I heard them, and I asked you if there was somebody downstairs, and that's when you
Yep.
said, yeah, there's like 2 or 3 people. So,
Yep, exactly. Well,
Well, do you think
hopefully,
they have to be? Do you think that they have to be somehow connected to you? Either that you personally want to hear it, or they feel an affiliation for you, or an affinity towards you, or what? You think that there really has to be a connection between a spirit and the investigator?
personally, I think it just varies from situation to situation. In the case of the Pry House, I think it's residual. So what Henry and I heard, a lot of people probably could have, and definitely people had heard with no doubts. And it just happened to be that because Henry and I were the only two standing in the hallway at the time, we just happened to be there at the right time to be able to hear it. But then again, there could have been another person standing there that didn't hear a darn thing. We don't know because it was just Henry and I.
yep. Which was real interesting because things like that happen all the time. And you can be in one room and have your recorder and catch stuff, and somebody else in the same room won't even catch it.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the case with the doppelgangers. And one particular location, it happened to 4 of us. And I think that's probably what was really the most weird night that I've ever had. And that's because 4 of us saw the same doppelganger, the same person in 4 different locations that night. And there was no way that that person would have been in those 4 locations. And then another person saw another member of the team in another location, and they weren't there. So whatever this doppelganger was that night, they not only mimicked one for me, but they mimicked 3 other people that night. So I saw one person that really wasn't in that location, and 3 other people saw 3 other people in that location that were not there at the time. And that was the most unnerving experience. I can't say where the location was, but just to let you know that I originally was not going to be a part of the investigation that night because I wasn't feeling well. So I decided to sit it out with someone in a major location. And suddenly this spirit started bugging the dickens out of me by standing to my right side and walking back and forth, trying to get my attention. And I'm like, what are you doing? What do you want? And they wouldn't answer me. And I couldn't focus in on who it was at all. But suddenly I got this really bad urge to get up and find the person that was in charge of the investigation. And I don't do that. That would have meant that I'd have to get up and go all the way through the location to find them. But I felt this dire need to get up and find the person that was leading the investigation. So I told the person that I had been sitting with, I'll be right back. And when I started walking through the location, there was another person doing the investigation, started to walk past me. And I said, hey, so-and-so, can you tell me where team leader is? And they just kept on walking. And I thought, how rude. You didn't even answer me. Excuse me? Well, no problem. I continued to walk, and I saw another member of our team sitting by themselves, another female sitting by themselves, which was odd. And I walked up to them, and I said, are you okay? And they said, no, I just felt as though I needed to be by myself. And I said, well, where's so-and-so? Where's the team leader? And they said, I saw them go up the stairs with 2 other people just a little while ago. And I said, well, I need to let them know something because something's off here. Something doesn't feel right. So we both walked up those stairs, walked into another location where a few people were doing an EVP session, and said, hey, do you know where the team leader is? And they said, yeah, they're all the way across the other end of the building. Are you serious? Yeah. Well, first of all, the person on the stairs had seen the team leader go up the stairs with 2 other people. And those 2 other people said, no, the team leader wasn't with us. What are you talking about? And it turned out that both the team leader and the person I saw were in an entirely different location in the building. So we decided, this person and I, we decided to go and look for the team leader. We went down another set of stairs through a different location, and we couldn't find them. And we got disoriented. We've been in that building a half a dozen times, but we both got disoriented. And we turned around and came back. And when we came back, we came across another person on the team and said, hey, have you seen thus and such? And they said, well, yeah, they came out that same door about 5 minutes ago. And I said, oh, no, there's no way. No, because there was no way that they could get past us to go through that door. And they said, well, yeah, they did. They came through the door and went down the stairs. So this person and I went back down the stairs, went back into the main part of the building, and then we found out that another person was looking for not only the team leader, but they had seen another person go through. So I finally found the team leader, and I said, something's off here. Something's not right. So he called everybody back and said, that's it. Something's weird here. People are seeing people that aren't in the right area. That's it. We're shutting it down. And the next thing I know, one of the members of the team decided to do a smudging. And they went individual to individual and smudged. And we all, sent out all these good vibes and everything. And right after everybody was smudged, suddenly the whole atmosphere changed. It was like whatever it was that was messing with us had left. And we discovered after discussing it that this doppelganger showed itself mostly to females, and all of us felt the need to go off by ourselves for some reason. And that was scary. So the entire evening ended on a very strange note.
Like you haven't paid attention to a single horror movie in your life.
Yeah. I felt very unnerved going back to that location. a couple of times after that. And I had made it very clear to the spirits that I was familiar with, look, whoever or whatever it is that is doing this, if you know who they are, please tell them to stop if you can. And if you can't get them to stop, then at least let them know how badly they're affecting everybody. Please, just make them stop. This is not cool. And it never happened again. But it just seemed to happen to all three women on the team and isolated us. And we don't go off by ourselves. That's not what we do. That's not part of our, what we do on an investigation. But all three of us felt the need to go off alone. And that's what's scary.
Interesting. There's a couple of questions in chat room, one of which is interesting, and that is trying to figure out what the end game is for these doppelgangers. Is it feeding off of fear, in which case you think it wouldn't care if it was on camera or not because that would incite more fear? What do you think the issue is here? The goal is it fear, or is it that adrenaline rush at once?
Personally, I never felt any fear involved. It was just, it was like if you happen to be walking into a room in a little bit of a haze, like you've got something else on your mind, and you walk into a room and you look around and go, wait a minute, what the hell am I doing in here? Type of thing. Well, it's almost the same thing that happened that night, where once all three of us ladies ended up going off by ourselves, suddenly we looked up and goes, wait a minute, why am I by myself? What's going on here? Whatever it was that was there that night, I think it was just enjoying messing with us. None of us felt any fear. It was just not right.
Could it be like extreme mischievousness?
Yeah. I think it knew that it was messing with us and enjoyed it. And that's why the evening got shut down. That's why we called it quits and said, no, we're not going to feed it anymore. We're not going to feed the energy. And letting it know, hey, look, you didn't win. We just figured your butt out. And we're calling it quits.
So it's kind of a stalker.
Yeah, kind of, I suppose.
A voyeur, it's hard to say exactly what it is because it sounds like it attaches itself to people. And I don't mean like a attachment, demonic attachment, but it just sort of isolates one person, goes, I think I'll follow you.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it was that particular night. That was the weirdest. But probably the most unnerving one was when I was in Ireland with my sister in 1992. And we were in a location called CARE, C-A-H-I-R. And we had booked to be in a bed and breakfast in an old jailhouse, which looked an awful lot like a miniature castle. And it had a huge wall, rock wall around it and everything. And after we checked in, we had to go upstairs and some really cool winding staircase and everything. And our room was actually in one of the old jail cells. And for me, the moment I walked in the door, I knew the place was haunted. There was just no doubt about it. Well, after we got settled in, we had asked our host where was a good place to go get some dinner. And I realized that I didn't have my overnight bag. So I excused myself and went downstairs. I took the car keys and went out to the parking area to get my overnight bag out of the car. Well, there's a motion sensor light that would come on when you first leave the building. So as soon as I walked out the door, the light came on. And there was a sidewalk that went from the front door all the way down to where that rock wall was. But I noticed when we first pulled up and everything that there wasn't any other entrance to it except for this one archway. Well, anyway, I'm in the parking lot. I got my bag, and I look up and I see my sister walking down the sidewalk. And I see her headed toward that archway. So I yelled out to her, hey, I'm coming back in. She didn't answer me. Well, I didn't think anything of it, so I slammed the door. But by the time I walked back up the side of the hill, she wasn't there. But then I looked back, and here she is headed toward that archway. I'm like, it's getting dark. The motion sensor light had gone off. But I saw her headed toward that archway. So I'm like, hey, sis, where are you going? So I just put the bag on the ground and headed toward her when she walked around that archway and disappeared. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? It's dark. So I started walking very, very quickly toward that area, but as soon as I got to that archway, I had to stop myself very quickly because right after that archway, that area went straight down. It was nothing but a hill that headed toward the road. And there was no way that anybody could go around that wall. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my sister fell down the hill. So I looked down and I didn't see her. I called out and everything else. And I turned around to go back and maybe get a flashlight and let them know, hey, I think my sister hurt herself, when I saw my sister going back into the building. And no, this isn't right. Something's very off here, because she couldn't have gotten back onto the sidewalk at all, because that's the only entrance in that rock wall. So I went back up, grabbed my bag, went up, put the code in the door. Now, see, here's the thing. I didn't see the door open. You have to punch in a code to get in the door. And I didn't see the door open. So once I got there, the motion light came on, which was weird because she didn't set it off. But yet when I got up close, the motion light came on. I punched in my code and I walked in and I could hear my sister talking to the host in the little room where there was a nice fireplace and everything. I put the bag down and walked in and my sister's sitting there. The host had brought in some tea and some biscuits and everything else and was talking to her. Then the host excused herself and I asked my sister, I said, what were you doing outside? And she says, what do you mean outside? I just came down the stairs. No more than a minute ago. I came down here and the host was coming in with, a plate of tea and cookies and stuff. And I realized that what I had seen outside was wearing the same exact clothes my sister was in that room. And she must have seen the look on my face and she says, what's the matter? And I couldn't tell her. I couldn't say anything. I was just struck. Like, no, I didn't see this at all. And we ended up going out to dinner. We came back that night. I could not sleep at all that night. My eyes were just wide awake, and I could hear keys rattling. I could hear people walking up and down the hall on the stone walkway. It was very noisy all night long. My sister did nothing but snore, but I was wide awake. I never did tell her about that. Never did tell her about it. But the next morning, as we got ready to leave, and we handed the key to the room back to the host, and she asked, well, how was the night and everything? I waited until my sister was taking her bags and everything out to the car. Yes, Jeff, it was Cara in Ireland. And I waited for my sister to leave, and I looked at the host and I said, excuse me, but can you tell me about what spirits might be here? And she got this strange look on her face, and suddenly she burst out with a big grin, and she says, oh, so you've had experiences with them. And I said, yes, indeed. I said, and last night I wasn't real happy about it because one mimicked my sister, the appearance of my sister. And she said, unfortunately, that's one of the things that one of them does. And I said, well, what I didn't like was that it caused me to almost fall down that hill. And she got another strange look on her face, and she says, really? And I said, yeah. She says, well, I've heard of people tripping on the property. I've heard them, of people complaining that they've tripped either up or down the stairs while they're here, that sort of thing. And that was all. But that was definitely probably the most unnerving part, was seeing my sister and knowing later that this spirit could have caused me to, excuse this expression, but go ass over tin cups down this hill. Because if I hadn't stopped myself, I would have rolled down the hill about 30 feet.
Have you ever seen Darby O'Gill and the Little People?
Yeah.
Remember, the daughter went to chase down the horse, but Darby knew that it wasn't going to be a horse that she was chasing. It was essentially leading her so she could be hurt.
Yeah.
Essentially,
yeah.
it was a puka, which is what my cat is named after.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the heck it was, but to this day, that was probably the scariest, was knowing full well that whatever it was, I could have been seriously injured if I hadn't stopped myself.
I know in the house where we used to live, I think I was upstairs in the bedroom watching a baseball game, and I was laying on the bed, and you could look straight out our door, and we had a big middle room that would go over to the stairs, and you go downstairs. And I was laying there watching the ball game, and just out of the corner of the eye, I didn't see anybody go across the room. I only seen about a half of a person as they were going downstairs, the back half. I couldn't tell if it was, I thought it was Patsy because there wouldn't have been anybody else in the house that I know of. And eventually I got up and went downstairs, and I asked her, what'd you want? She says, what do you mean? I said, well, you was just upstairs, and I hollered at you. And she says, I haven't been upstairs. So do you think that could have been a doppelganger, or could have it been a spirit? Now, this house, we bought it brand new in 2008, I think it was. No, yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. And no, it might have been earlier than that. We bought it before that. But we was the only people that had lived there. So how can a house all of a sudden have spirits or something like that in a house when it's a new house, nobody else has lived there?
It could have been a spirit that was attached to the land. I mean, I was on an investigation in a brand new subdivision that had only been built in, I think, 2013. And they couldn't figure out why they were having spirits in their house. And it turned out that where that subdivision was built was part of a fairly large estate back in the mid-1800s. And they had a lot of land, where they had both crops and livestock. And there was a lot of talk about this person, even though it was in Pennsylvania, and not many slaves were to be had in Pennsylvania for many years beyond a certain period of time. But apparently this person had mistreated quite a number of their workers and slaves. And they were a nasty piece of work. So evidently they were very, very protective, because it turns out after we had done the investigation that more than one person in that subdivision had reported activity. So sometimes I don't think it's just a particular person attached to a home that they lived in. I think they might be just attached to the land or an area.
Hmm.
And that may have been the case with you guys.
Well, I know this whole area subdivision had been built, and I assume that it had been fields, cornfields or wheat fields or whatever, but that land had a lot of rock in it. So it was not too far from, I guess, the river, maybe
Ooh.
mile, half a mile. No, it had been at least about a mile, I guess, if that far. But
Was it quartz rock? Do you know if it was quartz?
I have no idea what kind of rock it was. It's just if you tried to dig in the backyard, you'd find rock.
Okay. Because more often than not, that's usually what happens. I mean, I know here in my area, it's quartz.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that you dig up around here is, it has quartz embedded in it. And this area has such a rich history that I don't think you could throw a rock and not find some place that has at least some sort of spirit activity.
Well, I'm sure that way back when, I'm sure Indian tribes had been all around there. But the person that I seen wasn't dressed like an Indian. It was just dressed normal. Just from what I seen, because I only caught a quick glimpse. But I never did have anything bad or anything like that happen there. So, but I mean, I have heard things there. I heard Patsy outside my computer room, and she was talking to the little cat, said, oh, there you are, little girl, because we kept her box and stuff in the bathroom. And so I got up and went over there and looked out, and there wasn't nobody there. I didn't see the cat. And I went downstairs and asked her, what'd you want or whatever? And she says, what do you mean? I said, well, I just heard you talking about the cat, or to the cat. And she says, I haven't been upstairs.
Yeah. I'm not sure how that plays out. I think sometimes spirits like to either show themselves or at least project themselves in some manner that you feel comfortable with. And if that means mimicking a person's voice that you feel comfortable with, I think that's what they do. Because I've definitely had that happen a lot in my lifetime, where I could be just sitting doing nothing and I'll hear somebody's voice saying something, and I'll think maybe it was my husband or another family member that isn't here anymore, and I'll look around and say, what? And especially if I thought it was my husband saying something, he's like, well, I didn't say anything. Okay, well, then I have to look around and say, all right, whoever it is that's messing with me, we just stop. I don't like that. That's something I don't quite agree with. Just don't mess with me like that. Don't do it.
Well, do you think that maybe that they could be mimicking voices and maybe even faces because they know that will get our attention?
Yeah. I think that is definitely true. Now, the night that I described where more than one of us saw different people, what was odd is that the person that I saw that night that didn't answer me when I said something, that's the first time I'd ever seen that person was that night. That's the first time I'd ever met this person was on this investigation. So it was weird that I saw that particular person and I couldn't figure out why. But I thought, well, how rude. You're not answering me. You're just walking right past me. So I don't know if it's, there might be some spirits that would like to show themselves to you in a way that you feel comfortable and familiar with to get your attention. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case.
So, do you think poltergeists can hurt people like that? Or doppelganger, rather?
I don't think a doppelganger itself can hurt you, but I think it can cause the situation. And I know that, we're getting ready to come up on getting a break and everything coming up. So I'll tell you a story about definitely being in harm's way or having something happen as a result of seeing a doppelganger after the break. But yeah, I think there's times when not only are they trying to get our attention and maybe causing mischief, I don't know if it's necessarily their intention to cause us harm. But let's face it, if you're the kind of person in life that enjoys either inflicting pain or just being a jerk or a bully, I'm sorry, but that's not going to change after you die. That's that kind of an attitude, that kind of a personality is going to continue. And if they decide that they're going to come back and haunt, be a spirit, why would you assume that just because you've passed on, you're going to change your attitude? You're going to continue to do this to people, and you're going to enjoy it. And when you're on an investigation, your senses are already heightened as it is. And when something like that happens, it has a tendency to just feed whatever or whoever's doing this. It's like when you see things on TV where somebody goes into a location and the first thing they say is, oh, well, I want you to show yourself to me. I want you to bang on something or hit something or throw something. But when something does get banged on or thrown at them, the first thing they do is throw their hands up in the air and start running from the room. Excuse me? That's what you asked them to do. So why get all freaked out?
I've lost count how many times I've said that on the show.
Yeah, excuse me. I mean, it's
that's why I find Zach Bagans kind of shows just to be these weird comedies.
I mean, the one time that I really seriously, literally, I could feel their hand on my back shoving me up the stairs. I hit the floor, skinned my hands and everything. I turned around and I said, what the frig was that for? I didn't run from the building screaming with my hands up in the air. I just turned and I said, what the frig was that for?
What? You didn't do that? My.
What? Excuse me.
I was in an investigation where we had been through the first room, which was it was a Masonic lodge. So the opening room was a bar with a billiard table, and we're in there, but looking around. Yeah, move on to the next area, which was the auditorium, and all of a sudden we hear major sounds behind us in the room we just emptied. So everyone freezes. And I start walking towards the room. They're like, where are you going? I'm like, that's where the sound come from. What do you think we're here for?
Yeah. I mean, there was one time that I was watching a show, and this young woman, they had been in a room, and they were asking the spirit to communicate and let everybody know they were there. And the next thing you know, you hear, apparently on camera as well, which I have to be suspect about sometimes, where suddenly you hear a disembodied voice coming from another room. Now, most investigators, the first thing you would do would be to get up and go toward that voice. And you'd say, hello, I'm so-and-so, what is it that you would like to say? You go on from there, you engage in what's going on. But on this particular show, this young lady, you hear this voice, and the first thing she says is, oh, well, I think we've done enough for tonight. Maybe we ought to wrap up. I'm like, seriously?
What were you there for to start with?
What the heck? That doesn't make any sense. But, it's like putting on a commercial. Okay, and next we've got this coming up.
It's 50 minutes of showtime, and then something happens, and then 10 minutes are running.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Run, dude.
Hey, I still have that baseball cap somewhere.
No, you don't.
I do.
Run,
Oh,
dude.
that's classic. That's gonna be worth some money one of these days. Not.
Probably.
Somebody will see that and they'll say, what was this for?
Yeah, exactly.
By then, that means that somebody who's young was asking that because they'd never seen that before.
As long as it's after the copyright.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Break time.
Yeah, we got about 3 minutes. Anything either one of you guys want to add? Jeff, Barbara?
Well, we got a couple of questions coming from chat, but we'll get those
We'll get to
after
those
the break.
right after. That sounds good then.
So
I
it's
guess-
going out almost faster than with Thomas Workman.
We'll tell him that. I guess let me get stuff ready, and if you want, we can go ahead and take a break. Let me get set up here, and then I'll let Jeff take us out. Let's
I just
see.
know. In the meantime, folks, we have listeners in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and France.
Cool.
All right, Jeff, you want to take us out?
I'm just really trying to write down what you just said. You'll
Okay.
put it in the chat or something.
I will.
Get it from there. So you're listening to the Paranormal View on para-x.com with hosts Henry Foister, Ceiling Cat Barbara Duncan, and myself, Jeffrey Gould, with tonight's returning guest, Cat Snider Gasch. So stay tuned for more of the Paranormal View after the break.
Para-X Radio, programming for the open mind.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the Parax Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Those here in the chat room and those listening from around the world. We gladly hope that you guys are having a great time tonight. So, with that tonight, we have with us Barbara Duncan.
Hello, everyone.
And we got Jeffrey Gould.
Hello.
And we got our great guest tonight, Tabby Cat Gasch.
Hey, everybody.
All right. And since you already gave out where we got listeners at ahead of time.
It's called a preemptive strike, Henry.
Yeah. So
Shall we lead in with another question from chat?
if we
which is
got
a
one,
very
let's
interesting one.
if we got one, let's do that.
I do, and it's from Patsy, actually. And it's a really good question because it kind of leads into when people see ghosts, are they really ghosts? And that is, have you ever astral projected or bilocated to the point where somebody has seen you?
Ooh. Wow, Patsy. I tell you, you and I must be on the same wavelength because one of the other incidents with a doppelganger, I don't know if that was the case or not, but that is pretty darn close. And this is probably the strangest. I was in a location And I was with one team. There were 3 floors to this location. Well, actually 4 floors, because you have the main floor, 2 floors above, and the basement. So there were, and everybody alternated, different groups and everything. We would go from one floor to the other. Well, I was in the basement area with a group of people, and I kept getting this vibration off of this one spirit that I've encountered before, that he didn't want me there. He did not want me in that location at all. I just got this really weird feeling. And at the same time, I thought, well, I should be in another location. Didn't think anything more of it, but then suddenly I started getting sick to my stomach. And I thought, okay, this spirit is letting me know, you need to leave. That's it. And so I started to leave. Another member of the team started to escort me to the stairs to leave that location. And I got so disoriented that I literally hit my foot on the first step and fell over onto the landing and bruised the front of my right shin in the front. Badly enough that I still, to this day, after 3 years, still have a mark on my leg. But when I got upstairs, I was told that somebody had seen me walk down the hallway. And I wasn't up there at the time, but yet they saw me with the clothes I was wearing walking down the hallway. Then later on that evening, I was on the 3rd floor, and I just kept getting this feeling that I should be back in the basement. An overwhelming feeling that I should be back in the basement. And then the person that was in the basement sent a message up on their two-way radio saying, "Is Cat up there with you?" And the person that was leading our team said, "Yeah, she's up here. Why?" And I said, "Because one of the people down here in the basement kept seeing her right behind them, and kept turning around and thinking, well, Cat's right behind." And I'm like, no, that certainly wasn't me. So whatever it was that was in the building that night was mimicking me, and I don't know why. I mean, somebody saw me on the 1st floor, but when I was on the 3rd floor, they saw me in the basement. I don't know why that happened. That was weird. It was like it was a projection. They just saw me at a glance going through the location. But why they mimicked me, a live person, right there, I don't know. I didn't like it. And I told the spirits that just as we were getting ready to leave, I turned around and I said, look, I don't know who in the heck you are, but the next time I come in here, don't pull that crap again. I don't like it. You know, it's one thing to let us know you're here, but to mimic me, no, that's not going to happen. And it never did.
Were you projecting yourself down there, or do you think it was something else?
After I thought about it, but Patsy probably kind of got it right. When I was in the basement, I thought I should be someplace else. And when I was on the 3rd floor, I thought I should be back in the basement. So I don't know. Maybe I did.
Huh.
That's a good possibility.
Sure the ghosts didn't have stock in Xerox or something?
Evidently. I think, the spirits that were in this location, they're very strong. I think they were just feeding off of me and the fact that I just kept thinking, well, I really needed to be in this location. I really needed to leave and go in this location. I think they were feeding off of it and helping me to project myself, because the guy in the basement was firmly convinced that I was standing behind him. But I was not there.
Wow.
You kind of see that in dreams, where the dream is so, like lucid dreaming, where the dream is so real you think you're there, and then you look at somebody who's standing there, and then they look startled to see you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've had that happen.
Yeah. That's wild.
Oh yeah. Because then you wonder, what the heck? I'm going to go someplace, and somebody's going to go, ew.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you pinched my husband. Excuse me, that wasn't me. I didn't do it. I had nothing to do with it.
Were you standing in the middle of my living room? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even Jack Loco was in, I don't know if it was in Waverly down in the tunnel, but she said not only did she feel something poking her back, but the people behind her could see her jacket being depressed by something poking at her that they couldn't see.
And who was that?
Cat, or Cat Loco.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cat always had things around her or something happening to her when we was out on places.
Oh yeah, well I experienced that myself when I was around her. I mean, she and Pat McCormick both are kind of what I would refer to as ghost magnets. You know, where they have a tendency to just appear there.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Because any time that I was with her on an investigation somewhere, we always got good EVPs, and you would never hear the stuff until we go back and listen to it, but plain as day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's very much a shame that, you know, with this virus and everything, we're not able to get out and do the things that we used to.
No.
Certainly, there's a lot of places that have opened up again.
Yeah.
You know, people are doing investigations and so forth. And they're trying to take all the precautions that they possibly can.
It's still not safe.
No, it still isn't safe. You still have to do everything you possibly can to, you know, make sure that everybody has their distance and so forth. And because of that, I think I pointed out on another show I was on with you that there's a lot of spirits that were very happy that there weren't a whole lot of people messing with them all the time. They're like, yeah, I was finally getting some rest here because there weren't a whole lot of people coming through. And then there's other locations where the spirits are like, oh man, I missed you guys so much because, you know, I'm enjoying the company.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the attention.
Yeah, but let's face it, small groups, 6 feet and social distancing is actually a good idea in paranormal investigations.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you think of all the clutter and the garbage that you pick up on recorders, to have fewer people and distanced apart where you're not going to pick up a lot from the other people, probably a very good thing.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't got to go do that yet, but hopefully it won't be too long. So.
Yeah. I mean, like Ghost Hunter Joe Clark said, you know, the fewer people you have on an investigation, the better. Some of these large locations, I've been to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Western West Virginia 3 times. And all 3 of them were what they refer to as public investigations, where you might have as many as 40 people to do something in a night. But that place is humongous. You know, there's 4 floors to it, and there's wings like the shape of an E. So it isn't like 40 people aren't going to really run into each other. So they break them up into groups of 10, at least if they can help it, in order to, or 10 or 12, to get on each floor. And then they rotate. And I can guarantee you that if you're got a group of 10 people in one area and a group of 10 people in another, you're not going to hear it. But if you get a group of people that are not really serious about what they're doing, if all they're wanting to do is to go to a location and hope they're going to get scared by something, they're not going to take it seriously. They're going to make a lot of noise. They're going to laugh.
Yep.
You know, they're going to stomp their feet and everything else. And if you happen to be in the same general area,
That sound
you
will
can be
travel.
below them, and it sounds like a bunch of elephants walking around
Yep.
because they're not being quiet. So anything that you get is basically contaminated because you have no clue what it is. But if you are in a small group, then at least you are either within sight of each other or you can at least know where each other are. And that way you can say, hey, was that you guys stomping around?
Hmm.
And I said, no, it wasn't us. Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's something else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
And conversely to that, COVID has forced people to be inside more. There's more activity, probably a little bit more stress and activity than people would like, but that also tends to perk up ghost investigations. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes. I think just emotions in general have an awful lot of effect on an investigation because being a medium, I've been on investigations where I may have not necessarily felt all that well. And so my spidey sense wasn't working that night. And I can go there and really not pick up on anything because I'm not attuned. I either can't or don't or won't because I don't feel well. But I was part of a group, and so therefore I was there to support them and do what I needed to. And nothing happens. You know, absolutely nothing. No EVPs, nothing, no voices, nothing happens. And then there's other times you go into a location and you're all happy and jovial and you're in good health and everything happens. So you don't really know, but then it also depends on the mood. I've been on investigations where you've had people that come in there with a serious attitude problem. You know, they've come in because they've just had a fight with their boyfriend or their spouse or something, and they've got this attitude. And that energy just seems to feed certain spirits. And suddenly you're getting EVPs, the REM pods are going, the spirit box is going nuts. And it's all because they're feeding off of you. And it's not just the equipment, you know, because batteries die, your cameras shut off, your recorders just don't record, but they feed off of you as well. Energy is energy, whether it's electrical or biochemical or whatever. I think that has an awful lot to do with it. So for me, if I go into a location and I don't feel well and I'm just not attuned, I'm sorry, excuse this expression, but that evening is dead. It's just not happening.
wow. A couple of things I wanted to bring up and forgot. Good friend of ours, him and his wife, I guess, now has COVID, and he just got his second shot, from what I understand, and he is very, very sick. Him and his wife both are. So we want to keep Rock with the Shock in our prayers. Lift him up.
Definitely.
And let's see, there was somebody else. Oh, yeah. Good friend of ours passed away this past week. And wanted to lift his family up with that. So.
Yeah, this stuff is no joke, people. It is no joke.
No, it's not. So, with
And
that.
it won't be for, yeah. But on the other hand, it's forced people to be a little bit more social within their own families situations. So
yes, it has.
I know how it goes.
I think
You're either going to love them or hate them by the end of this.
well,
There's maybe a heck of a lot more poltergeist activity out there by the end of this whole thing than we want.
Probably.
Oh, I have to wonder about that, Barbara, because when you think about it, especially when poltergeist activity really ramps up when uh, someone is going through puberty and so forth. My goodness, I really feel so sorry for those parents that have to be in the household with a teenager going through puberty. And not only are they stuck in the house, but the plates are flying out of the kitchen cabinets because they've got a pubescent child in their household.
Yeah, I
But you
kind of
don't hear
wonder.
about it because they don't want to tell anybody.
I kind of wonder if we get like the scene from Carrie showing up in
Yeah,
people's homes right
exactly.
now, simply because, yeah, there's this all that pent up energy, and they can't get out and they can't vent it. There's just, yeah, nothing you could do. Yeah, it could be
Well,
fun. Well, no, not fun, but
no, no.
I'm
I
sure
guess I
several.
was fortunate as I was growing up. I wasn't, you know, I was a pain in the butt, especially during puberty, but as far as I can remember, I never did any kind of poltergeist type of thing. I did it on my own. If I was angry, I picked up something and threw it myself.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I'm angry. I want you to know it was me that threw the plate.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
blame it on a poltergeist.
Now, I'm sure that people that moves into other houses, they have to move and they move into an older home or one that's not real old. Um, I imagine there is lots of times that there's probably spirits in that house that people never even know. I mean, nothing ever happens. They just live there without anything happening.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The house that I grew up in, it was built in 1903. And from the moment that my father started renovating it, before we even moved in, that's when I started seeing and hearing things. When my mother would take me along, and I couldn't figure out who in the heck it was for the longest time, but my father never saw anything except that he used to blame me for his tools and things going missing. But I wasn't doing it. I mean, I was there, but he would blame me for things either being moved or missing, but I knew it wasn't me. Now, my mother, she claimed she never heard or saw anything. She would just put it down to things like, oh, well, that's the old floorboards. They're creaking, they're settling. The house itself is settling. Oh, and in the wintertime, it was the radiators clinking and clanking. And it was the old windows that rattled because the breeze would come through. And my mother had an explanation for everything that happened in that house. Everything. And it was just because it was old. And the shadows and everything, oh, it was because the wind was blowing and the branches were going across the street light across the street, and that's what was causing it. There was always a logical explanation to my mother what was going on in my house. And for me, I knew perfectly well it wasn't. I knew it wasn't all these things. Yeah, sure. The thing would, clink and clank and everything else, but no. I I would see all these things in the house and know perfectly well. No, that was not just the wind or a breeze. And so some people are very receptive to it, some people are not. And so, yeah, I think there could be spirits in some people's houses, but they have a tendency to explain it away, either because they don't want to believe that it might be haunted, or their belief system doesn't allow them to believe that it might be haunted, or in my mother's case, she would have been scared.
Okay, now
So,
let me ask this then. Is that doubt and is that skepticism what keeps some people safe? You know, in the Catholic faith, I believe you're taught to completely ignore it because to accept it and to acknowledge it is dangerous. But for even in just regular hauntings, is it best for some people just to ignore it and let it go away? Or does that skepticism also, just by explaining it away, keep activity from escalating?
um, that's an interesting point of view. I know from my mother, um, and I'm sure she probably is listening at the moment. My mother had a tendency to be what I would refer to as an ostrich. She had a tendency to put her head in the sand and ignore things. If you couldn't see it, if you couldn't hear it, it wasn't happening. So just ignore it. And I think mostly it was just because she didn't understand things, and the thought of our house being haunted, she wasn't familiar with it. It wasn't something she was used to. So therefore, if I just don't acknowledge it, it doesn't happen. It's not happening. So whether she actually believed it or not, she didn't say anything for many years. And it wasn't until probably a few years before she passed away that she finally admitted that, yeah, she was hearing things in the house that she couldn't explain. She had seen shadows that she couldn't explain. And there were times that things would happen, especially with the gentleman friend that she had before she passed away, that were happening to him. And even he admitted that he knew perfectly well the house was haunted, but she still, even to his face, she had a tendency to explain away. I think it's just something individual with people. They have a tendency to want to believe or they don't want to believe. And if they don't want to believe, they're going to find a way to explain it away. Whether, as you said, it had to do with their religious beliefs or just their mentality, like my mom, the ostrich. Put your head in the sand. If you ignore it, it's not happening.
Well, you look at the case of, say, the Amityville, where, the DeFeo's incident happened, and then the Lutz family moved in and had all the activity. The family moved in after the Lutz family, had absolutely nothing happen. They
Yeah.
didn't believe it. They didn't have any issues. Nothing occurred. Now, one could say that that's probably because it wasn't haunted to begin with, but you could simply go back and look at some instances where some people would say the house is really haunted. We moved out, and the next family moves in, and nothing.
Yeah. I think it goes from individual case to individual case. It's like the incident with The Exorcist. I grew up no more than 2 miles away from where the family lived that it was based on. And people insisted, and I've actually gotten into about half arguments with people in chat rooms where people said, oh no, this all happened in Georgetown, D.C. No, it did not. And there were many, many people that insisted that all of the exorcisms occurred in St. Louis, in the house that was on one of those ghost shows. Well, no, sorry. That house belonged to a family member, but there was no exorcisms that took place in that house. Everything took place someplace else. You can't tell somebody something, even if you can actually prove it on paper or anything. If they firmly believe in something, you can't convince anybody of something if they believe it. And I think it's the same way with the Amityville. If people firmly believed that the house was haunted, and even DeFeo himself said, I wasn't influenced by the devil, I was influenced by drugs. You know, who are you going to believe? The actual person or a book?
Well, one of my favorite Mark Twain quotes is, "It's easier to fool the people than to convince them they've been fooled."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is a lot of people don't realize that, yeah, even if a film is based on a novel and the novel is based on a true story, they're not necessarily saying this is the true story. I mean, hell, look at Fire in the Sky. Like,
Yeah.
trying to fool who?
Yeah. Yeah, it's how you want to believe it or why you want to believe it that I think is the issue. And for most people within the paranormal, it's either true or it's just entertainment. There's really not much in between. It's either something that entertains you or it's real. And I think that's probably the worst thing that we can have in the field, is that you have so many different things going on that show people all of these inconsistencies and all of these, I think, what is it, that violence and sex sells? Well, yeah, it's true. You know, and Jeff, you definitely know this, being in the media, that kind of thing is definitely true. You know, sex violence, you know, it sells in the media.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. So when you have something within the paranormal, you either have to have demons behind every door because it's scary, it's virtually unknown to many people, or you have to have a ghost that is attacking you all the time, scratching you, grabbing you, throwing you down the stairs, taking you over. Because the average ghost story, to most people, is like, okay, so what? Okay, so you saw a ghost, so what? No, we want to hear that you got taken over by a demon and attacked your teammate. That's what they want to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of taking over by Taco Bell and needing to leave them. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Taco Bell does have good French fries.
Well, you know, those vapors and anomalies have to come from somewhere.
Yep.
Not that I want anything to happen, but I've been to many places and I've never come across anything that was really bad. I mean, I get all kinds of EVPs, but nothing is, like go away or I'll kill you or anything like that.
It's because it isn't bad. I mean, we got to get out of the notion that just because it's haunted doesn't make it bad.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's people that used to live there. They're just, that's where they live. That's what they know, and that's why they're there.
Yeah. Or they're just angry. Or like I said, if you're an idiot, when you're alive, you're going to be an idiot in death, and you're just going to continue on. So when somebody says, oh, well, I got scratched by this person, it's got to be a demon. No, I'm sorry. It might just be someone that is wanting to get your attention. I got grabbed by the wrist in a cemetery one time that hurt. I mean, it seriously hurt my wrist to be grabbed. And the spirit wasn't trying to hurt me. They were trying to get my attention because they had taken a hold of my hand a couple of times, but I ignored them. And finally they said, all right, darn it, I'm going to get your attention. And they grabbed my hand and my wrist so hard. I'm like, what? Okay, what? And the next thing I know, I'm being led to an area. So all of these people that get these scratches and everything else, let's face it, I put it like this. When a child is trying to get your attention, a small child, and you're talking to someone and they're trying to get your attention and they're saying, "Mommy, mommy, 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 mommy," and you're not paying any attention to them, what are they doing? They're grabbing a hold of your shirt tail, they're grabbing a hold of your pants, they're grabbing a hold of your arm, and eventually you're either going to do one of two things. Either you're going to say, "What?" and stop and ask them what it is you want, or they're going to turn around and say, "Will you stop it? I'm talking." And I think that's the way it is with a lot of spirits, where they want to get your attention in the worst way, and they don't really know how. And they're not really attuned to either sending you a message audio, audio. Where in the heck did that come from? Audio. Or they can only do it through a physical contact. And let's face it, if you're not paying any attention to somebody poking you, eventually that spirit's going to reach out and just out and out grab you, and they might not know their own strength. They might end up making a bruise. They might end up scratching you. I don't think it's necessarily intentional. I really don't.
Well, it's almost like the movie Ghost, where Patrick Swayze, accidentally knocks over the photo and thinks, "Oh my goodness, I can affect reality," and he starts swinging at the bad guy, and it just keeps going through him.
Yeah, it's intent. The whole thing is intent. And I think that's more it than anything else. I don't think that people getting scratched and shoved and so forth is something negative. They're more often than not just trying to get your attention. If she won't answer to repeated mommies, call her by her first name. That kid did that in Walmart. Oh my, yeah, it's like, my mother would say my entire name if I couldn't,
That's when you know
if I wasn't reacting.
When the middle name comes out,
Oh yeah, you're in trouble.
Call you by all your sister's names before they get to yours.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that'll happen. Oh goodness, yeah.
I do that with my cats. If one of them screws up, my cats go down the line.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's as simple as just simply stand in your room and go, "What do you want?"
Yep.
Wow.
Happens all the time.
But then like I said, there's some people that think that if they do that, then they've acknowledged the haunting, and then it starts that whole psychological process of what's a ghost and what is simply just house.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of feel things out, especially if you go to a location such as a private home investigation. You have to ask them a lot of questions about what's going on, because I went to a private location where they were experiencing so much stuff, and the first thing that happened, the moment that I walked in the door, I started getting very, very sick. And we pulled out EMF detectors and everything, and found out that their electrical system was really screwy. So it really didn't have anything to do with spirit activity. It had to do with extremely high EMF. And that EMF was actually even affecting their water system, because their wiring was right up alongside of their water lines. And so we ended up having to tell them, "You need to call an electrician and a plumber and get this thing worked out." Because it's not a haunting. It's affecting you through natural causes. It's not a haunting. And they finally accepted it and had things worked out. You've got to look at it from every angle. You can't immediately walk into a location and say, okay, well, just because I'm feeling this, it's got to be haunted. No,
No.
no. You've got to go about it methodically and objectively, and make sure that you make all of the right determinations and so forth. It's horrid that, people walk in to locations, and just because somebody says, well, I got scratched, yeah, there was a demon in the closet, open it up, there's a portal that's going to suck you in. And there's going to be a sandworm on the other side, and Beetlejuice is going to be talking to you. What?
Well, it depends on what number you've chosen in the waiting room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, we got about 17 minutes left. I wanted to throw this question out to you. Have you been back to Gettysburg this year or recently or anything?
The last time that I was in Gettysburg, I was there with Craig Rupp and Darcy McGrath, and that was last fall.
Last fall. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the first place you want to investigate when we can get out safely again?
I would say probably the area around Reynolds Avenue.
Okay.
And the
that's
reason
over...
for that was when I was there with Craig and Darcy, I had never been on that area. Never been
Really?
around there before.
Huh.
Never.
That's a place you couldn't find, remember? You kept driving around in circles.
Yep. And so I was there with them, and it was, how would I put this? Normally I don't see with my eyes, I just see with my third eye. But it was getting toward dusk when we arrived there, and I looked out over that field and I could actually see them with my eyes. It was that intense.
Wow.
It is very, very intense out there.
I knew there was something wrong with you. Three eyes?
Well, that's part of my charm, Henry. Definitely part of my charm. I mean, I have something more going for me than just getting us lost.
We got another question from chat room.
Okay.
This is a good one. Yeah. Has anybody ever reported hearing a doppelganger speak or look directly at them?
Yeah.
I think you kind of answered that, but
Yeah. That was one of my last stories. I was in a location here in my own town, a very old hotel that was built in 1911, and I was with a fellow investigator, and we were wrapping up for the evening. And part of every member of our team was to help carry the equipment back to the vehicles and everything. And myself and this other team member, we were getting ready to walk away from the quote-unquote command center when we both saw what we thought was our team leader going through the exit door to go up the stairs rather than taking the elevator. So we walked toward them. And just as we got there and we saw this person go through the door, I heard them say, "Follow me." So we did. But we got up to the second floor and we didn't see them anymore. And my teammate got very unnerved and said, "I don't feel right. I'm going back down." So they turned around and went back down, but I looked up in time to see what I thought was our team leader going up the stairs again. So here I am with an armful of equipment and everything. I'm going back up the stairs, following what I thought was the team leader, when my fellow teammate went back down. She didn't feel right, but I thought it was him. And I heard him say again, "We're almost there." But when I came up to that next floor, I realized, well, I missed the lobby. I'm not where I should be. So I went back down, went into the lobby, saw the person at the front desk and said, "Hey, did you see thus and such here?" "No, nobody from your team has been up here." "Really?" "No, nobody's been up here." So I went back down the stairs, went back to the command center, and the whole team was waiting for me, looking at me like, "Where in the hell were you?" And I said, "Well, I was following," and I looked over and saw the team leader. I'm like, "Oh my God. That wasn't you?" "No, it was not." And all I could do was just stand there with my mouth open going, then who in the hell was I following? And it scared me. It really did. And unfortunately, that kind of came back to bite me later on, where everybody was saying, well, I went off by myself, which was untrue. I was following what I thought was the team leader. But I heard this person say with their voice twice. One of them was, "Follow me," and the other one was, "We're almost there." I heard it, plain as day. And that's why I trusted them. But it wasn't them. And I still don't know who it was.
That would be creepy.
Yeah, it was. It was
But
very
it also-
creepy.
Yeah. It also proves that they can communicate. So it's kind of a I don't want to say luring you away. Maybe they needed you to see something. I don't know.
Well, whatever it was that night, by the time I figured out that I was chasing a ghost, by the time I got back downstairs, everybody was waiting on me. And the look on their faces were like, "Where did you go? Why did you do that?" And I'm like, well, I was just following them. "Well, it wasn't us." "Okay, then who in the heck was it?" "I don't know."
All right.
Well, Henry, is there some place in particular that you want to go when the time comes and you're able to come to Gettysburg? Is there any place that you want to go?
Not necessarily. Probably somewhere out on a battlefield to start with. I'm not looking to go to somewhere where there's going to be big crowds. So I have no idea. There's places around here, places that I've been to before that I haven't been able to get back to. I'd like to be able to get back to one of them with just, 2 or 3, 4 people, something like that, and investigate there again. But heaven knows when that'll happen.
Yeah.
So,
Has there ever been a massive tsunami of tourism at Gettysburg and the battlefields?
yes, when you go there in the summertime, I mean, you will not do any investigating because you just have people everywhere. They got their families, kids. They're out climbing on the rocks and going every which way. There's no way you could do any investigating.
No.
None.
Not really.
You have to go in a very early spring before they start actually coming out a whole lot, or probably late fall. The one thing I would like to do is be able to rent that house out on the battlefield with about 10 people, something like that. That would be
Oh yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. So we'll find
yeah.
out.
It's
If I hit the lottery tonight, I'll be able to do that.
yeah, same here. I mean, there's so many places and not only in Gettysburg, but Antietam and Monocacy and a whole bunch of areas where you can go that the average tourist does not go. And once you get there, you will find so much more activity because there's no, what I would refer to as living energy to interfere with what's going on. And I think that's part of the problem with large tourist places, especially during the summer when you have people, as you say, climbing all over the rocks and walking everywhere. It's not just the spirit energy that you pick up on, but it's the activity and energy that you pick up from the living as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for people like myself and Kat and a number of others, you go there and it's like trying to sift through a whole bunch of information to figure out what you're trying to focus on. How do you hone in on the energy and so forth? So any place that you go where it's a tourist location that is also haunted, that's what's going to happen, especially for those of us who are attuned to it and pick up on it. You can't sometimes have a hard time filtering things out, especially if there's too many of them. And that's what makes it difficult. So to go on into a location when nobody else is around, or go to those areas that hardly anybody goes, is the best. And that is what can be very interesting. And for those of you who don't know, Henry had a really interesting experience when we were in Gettysburg a few years back, where everybody was really in tune to all the spirits and we were all enjoying what was going on. And Henry keeps getting phone calls from his pharmacist the whole time. You know, we're all trying to get EVPs and everything, and his pharmacist kept calling, telling him his prescriptions were ready.
Yeah.
And we're all just laughing hysterically.
I had to turn the phone off.
That was so fun. But it made for such a wonderful time. I think that's what really makes time with you, Henry, so enjoyable, is that you never know what the heck is going to happen.
Yeah, we just have fun. Yeah. If a ghost drops by and leaves a message or something, that's fine. Otherwise, we're just having a good time carrying on.
Exactly.
Our time has just slipped away, and I hope everybody's enjoyed the show tonight. I will say that next week we got a lot of information and stuff that we'll be passing out. So you need to stop by then.
Are we getting swag bags? What?
No, I'm not giving anything away.
Oh.
But I will let people know we got some great shows that are already lined up. Next month we got a show, a round table with Thomas Wertman, Peter Robin, and Kathleen Marden.
Woo-hoo.
So they will be asking each other questions. It'll be the three of them, and they wanted me and Barbara to be moderators. So they'll be asking questions, and
Am I just serving drinks or something?
that's what we'll be doing. Yeah. So that's just one of the shows that we've got lined up. I think it's in 2 weeks. We have Kevin McQueen back on, who is a really great author, and we'll be talking about his book, Cruelly Murdered, and it's Kentucky True Crimes. So you have to drop back by on that, and I think that's a couple of weeks away. So with that, our time is getting pretty close. I'm going to let Barbara and Jeff and Cat Gasch tell us anything that they've got going on right now.
Yeah. I've been actually getting some acting work, and my scripts are still winning awards at film festivals. So hopefully, if I get a campaign going, maybe we'll get them funded and made.
Cool. Great. Congrats.
Yeah, check out my Instagram at Real Badger.
All right. Keep wearing those masks, people.
Yep.
Social distance.
Yeah, everybody stay safe. And, hopefully, me too, I will have some very good news sometime next week.
All right. Barbara, you got anything?
No, everything's pretty much going as it's going, right?
Going as it's
yeah.
going.
Well, there's still a lot of COVID stuff happening, and we just want everybody to take care of themselves and try not to get into trouble, and keep following guidelines, please, so that y'all stay around and we don't have to do EVPs to talk to you.
Oh,
Exactly.
there
That's
you
the most
go.
important thing.
All right. I guess we're going to go ahead and jump off. I want to thank everybody again for being with us tonight. Hope you had a good time and listening to stuff about doppelgangers. And who knows, you can let me know if one drops by your house. So with that, this is Henry Foister.
Jeffrey Gould.
Barbara Duncan.
Cat Gasch.
All right. See you next week at the same time. So good night, everybody. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal View.